The Truce of Piscataqua by John Greenleaf. Whittier. Raze these long blocks of brick and stone, these huge mill monsters overgrown. Blot out the humbler piles as well, where, moved like living shuttles, dwell the weaving genii of the bell. Tear from the wild Cocheco's track the dams that hold its torrents back, and let the loud rejoicing fall plunge, roaring, down its rocky wall, and let the Indians paddle play on the unbridged Piscataqua. Wide over hill and valley spread once more the forest, dusk and dread, with here and there a clearing cut from the walled shadows round it shut, each with its farmhouse builded rude, by English yeomen squared and hewed, and the grim, flankered blockhouse bound with bristling palisades around. So, haply shall before thine eyes the dusty veil of centuries rise, the old, strange scenery overlay the tamer pictures of today, while, like the actors in a play, pass in their ancient guise along the figures of my border song. What time beside Cocheco's flood the white man and the red man stood, with words of peace and brotherhood, when passed the sacred calumet from lip to lip with fire draught wet, and, puffed in scorn, the peace pipe's smoke through the grey beard of Waldron broke, and Squando's voice, in suppliant plea for mercy, struck the haughty key of one who held, in any fate, his native pride inviolate. Let your ears be opened wide. He who speaks has never lied. Waldron of Piscataqua, hear what Squando has to say. Squando shuts his eyes and sees, far off, Saco's hemlock trees. In his wigwam, still as stone, sits a woman all alone, wampum beads and birchen strands dropping from her careless hands, listening ever for the fleet patter of a dead child's feet. When the moon a year ago told the flowers the time to blow, in that lonely wigwam smiled Menowee, our little child. Ere that moon grew thin and old, he was lying still and cold, sent before us, weak and small, when the master did not call. On his little grave I lay, 3 times went in. Came the day, thrice above me blazed the noon, thrice upon me wept the moon. In the 3rd night watch I heard, far and low, a spirit bird, very mournful, very wild, sang the totem of my child. Menowee, poor Menowee, walks a path he cannot see. Let the white man's wigwam light with its blaze his steps aright. All uncalled, he dares not show empty hands to Manito. Better gifts he cannot bear than the scalps his slayers wear. All the while the totem sang, lightning blazed and thunder rang, and a black cloud, reaching high, pulled the white moon from the sky. I, the medicine man, whose ear all that spirits bear can hear, I, whose eyes are wide to see all the things that are to be, well I knew the dreadful signs in the whispers of the pines, in the river roaring loud, in the mutter of the cloud. At the breaking of the day, from the grave I passed away. Flowers bloomed round me, birds sang glad, but my heart was hot and mad. There is rust on Squando's knife, from the warm, red springs of life. On the funeral hemlock trees many a scalp the totem sees. Blood for blood, but evermore Squando's heart is sad and sore, and his poor squaw waits at home for the feet that never come. Waldron of Cocheco, hear! Squando speaks, who laughs at fear. Take the captives he has ta'en, let the land have peace. Again, as the words died on his tongue, wide apart his warriors swung, parted, at the sign he gave, right and left, like Egypt's wave. And, like Israel passing free through the prophet-charmed sea, captive mother, wife, and child through the dusky terror filed. One alone, a little maid, middleway her steps delayed, glancing with quick, troubled sight, round about from red to white. Then his hand the Indian laid on the little maiden's head, lightly from her forehead fair smoothing back her yellow hair. Gift or favor ask I none. What I have is all my own. Never yet the birds have sung, Squando hath a beggar's tongue. Yet for her who waits at home, for the dead who cannot come, let the little gold hair be in the place of Menowee. Miss Hannock, my little star, come to Saco's pines afar, where the sad one waits at home. Waquasham, my moonlight, come. What? Quoth Waldron, leave a child Christian born to heathens wild. As God lives, from Satan's hand I will pluck her, as a brand. Hear me, white man. Squando cried. Let the little one decide. Waquasham, my moonlight, say, wilt thou go with me, or stay? Slowly, sadly, half afraid, half regretfully, the maid owned the ties of blood and race, turned from Squando's pleading face. Not a word the Indian spoke, but his wampum chain he broke, and the beaded wonder hung on that neck so fair and young. Silence shod, as phantoms seem in the marches of a dream, single-filed, the grim array through the pine trees wound away. Doubting, trembling, sore amazed, through her tears the young child gazed. God preserve her, Waldron said. Satan hath bewitched the maid. Years went and came. At close of day singing came a child from play, tossing from her loose locked head gold in sunshine, brown in shade. Pride was in the mother's look, but her head she gravely shook, and with lips that fondly smiled feigned to chide her truant child. Unabashed, the maid began, up and down the brook I ran, where, beneath the bank so steep, lie the spotted trout asleep. Chip! Went squirrel on the wall, after me I heard him call, and the catbird on the tree tried his best to mimic me. Where the hemlocks grew so dark that I stopped to look and hark, on a log, with feather hat, by the path, an Indian sat, then I cried and ran away, but he called and bade me stay, and his voice was good and mild as my mother's to her child. And he took my wampum chain, looked and looked it o'er again, gave me berries, and, beside, on my neck a plaything tied. Straight the mother stooped to see what the Indian's gift might be. On the braid of wampum hung, lo, a cross of silver swung. Well she knew its graven sign, Squando's bird and totem pine, and, a mirage of the brain, flowed her childhood back again. Flashed the roof the sunshine through, into space the walls outgrew. On the Indian's wigwam mat, blossom-crowned, again she sat. Cool she felt the west wind blow, in her ear the pine sang low, and, like links from out a chain, dropped the years of care and pain. From the outward toil and din, from the griefs that gnaw within, to the freedom of the woods called the birds, and winds, and floods. Well, O painful minister, watch thy flock, but blame not her, if her ear grew sharp to hear all their voices whispering near. Blame her not, as to her soul all the desert's glamour stole, that a tear for childhood's loss dropped upon the Indian's cross. When, that night, the book was read, and she bowed her widowed head, and a prayer for each loved name rose like incense from a flame, with a hope the creeds forbid in her pitying bosom. Hid, to the listening ear of heaven lo, the Indian's name was given.